Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of artbyrow.com, where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials and everything art related. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. I hope you'll grab a pencil and some paper and draw along with us today. I know you'll have fun. Let's head on over to the studio. In today's video, we're going to be painting some watercolor birch trees. And I'm going to be doing mine on artist trading cards. So I have my sheets of watercolor paper already cut down to artist trading card size. Of course, you need a paintbrush, your paint, some water, and then some different thicknesses of tape for the trees. We're going to tape off the trees. This is really easy. This is a great beginner lesson. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is tape off where our trees are going to be. And there's a ton of different ways you can make your painting. You could have it going sideways like a landscape view. You could have some little ground area there. You could turn it long ways, portrait view. And also you could have your trees going all the way down your paper like I'm doing here, or you can have them only going down to wherever you may have like a hill or some ground area. And then another thing you can do is you could vary the width of your trees, which makes it look a little bit nicer. But with using this method where we're taping off where our trees are going to be, it takes a little bit more time to get your tape the way you want it to be. If you're going to vary your widths, because you're going to have to take some masking tape and tear it down to the width that you're trying to make your trees come out. So, and that's not a big deal. You can hear me ripping the tape off here. It's not a big deal. It's a little bit more work. It's a kind of an extra step. I got way too long of a piece here. And I'm not using the best masking tape. It's kind of thin, but it'll still work. So what I'm doing, if you can see this, I'm just tearing the edge of my tape. And it's kind of nice because then you get kind of a rough edge to it instead of it being completely straight, which that doesn't matter because we're going to go back over it later. So I'm not going to spend too much time trying to tear that down there. But so I have a tree that's a little bit wider. And then you can also, if you want to kind of overlap your trees a little bit, you could do that to make it look like one tree is in front of the other tree. So I'm going to kind of do that a little bit here. And your trees don't have to be straight. In nature, trees aren't always straight. They grow a little bit crooked. They get a little crazy. And we're not going to worry about the straight edges too much because we are going to use a pen or a marker to add some details to the trees. So we don't even need to worry about that. We'll fix that up and make it look more natural later on. So I have just any old brush, whatever kind of brush you prefer. And we're going to do a wet technique. So I'm going to start by putting just some plain water on my paper. And I'm going to do my background all the way across the entire surface of my artist trading cards. And I have my paint here. So I'm going to start adding some water to my paints. And then I'm just going to start right up at the top. And I'm going to add my colors. Now you can do any colors that you want for your sky. They don't even have to be natural or realistic colors. This is a really fun way to kind of get some practice in. Maybe if you've always wanted to do watercolor but you didn't quite know where or how to get started, this is a really good painting for that because it's so simple to do. And I'm not going to say it's impossible to mess it up, but you really can't mess it up, I don't think. You'd have to, I don't know, you'd have to do something pretty extreme to kind of ruin it. But so just put your colors in here, however you want them to look, whatever colors you want to use. And then you may want to go back in later and darken those colors up once this water dries, once your water evaporates and it dries up a little bit. You may want to go back and add some darker colors in there. That's up to you, that's your choice. But that, I mean, that's it for the background. We got some nice bright colors in there. And I'm using these tropicals, which I really like. They have nice vibrant colors. So the next thing is we just gotta wait. We gotta wait, let this dry, and then we're gonna come back and finish up these trees. All right, so I decided to do one more here while we're waiting for that one to dry. I wanna show you what I meant by adding a little bit of some ground to it. So just real lightly with a pencil, draw in where you want your ground to be. And then we're just going to do the same thing with the trees. As soon as I find the end of my tape here. Well, goodness. Okay, found it. All right, so what we want to do is, oops, try not to shake you too much here. What we want to do is have our trees come down past this ground area, but not all the way off the edge of the paper. Just have it come down. Here's where our ground area is. And we just want to do that with each one of the trees. And you can kind of vary where your trees stop at so they're not all lined up even. You don't want them to be all evenly lined up. That makes it kind of boring. So we're just gonna put a few trees in here. And again, it doesn't really matter what kind of tape you use. I'm just using what I happen to have on hand. And this tape is not cooperating with me today. All right, so now I like to do at least one, two different widths of trees, have them vary, at least one of the trees be a little bit different. I mean, it is a little bit of a hassle because you do have to rip down the tape unless you have tape that is, see, I think if I put that there, that's going to be too wide. It's going to take up too much room. If you're doing a full size piece of paper, like if you're doing a full, like whether it's in a sketchbook or this is not working. If you're doing a sketchbook page, or if you're doing a full sheet of watercolor paper, then you can just use the tape, the full width of the masking tape would work. But if you're doing something a little smaller like I am with the artist trading cards, then you will need to tear down the masking tape's going to be a little bit too wide, I think. And that's personal preference. For me, it feels a little bit too wide. So I do like to kind of tear it a little bit. And I'm going to go ahead and have this one going all the way off the edge of my paper. Okay, so I got the tape. Finally, that was a bit of a struggle. I'm going to go ahead with my water And I'm only gonna go just down to where my pencil line is right there. And then for this one, I'm going to use black because I want to show you that you don't have to use bright colors. You don't have to use any specific colors. And I also am going to change this one up a little bit, and I'm going to do it, I did it kind of darker at the top on the other one, and I'm going to do this one a little bit darker at the bottom. And again, when this dries, you could add a darker layer on there if you wanted, or you can go in right now while it's still wet and add some darker areas. Just kind of play around with it, have some fun. Like I said, you really can't mess this up. It's a pretty forgiving painting. So there we go. We got a couple. We got one with the ground, and then one that's going to be just all the background colors. And I will be back with you when this gets dry. All right, so now comes the fun part. Our watercolors are dry. We let them sit for a little bit, and now we just want to peel off the tape to reveal our trees underneath. So when you get ready to do your trees, I like using either a black outliner, or you can use a thinner black marker. It just depends on how thick or thin you want your lines to be. And then you're just going to go right over the edge. And if you ripped your paper, then go ahead and follow right along where those ripped edges are. And then also, if you did the overlapping, then go ahead and continue that line. If you make it wavy how it's ripped, then continue that down. Now for these ones that are just straight pieces of tape, you can go ahead and make those a little bit wavy if you want to, because trees are not going to be completely flat. On the edges, they're going to have little bumps and grooves. And if you get where I kind of went too far in right there and left a gap, just go ahead and go over top of it, darken it up a little bit. You want there to be some variation in your trees, so you can add some little darker areas on the edges. That's fine. Sometimes, especially like I used watercolor paper, so it has a bit of a texture to it, sometimes it makes it a little bit difficult to keep the marker going where you want it to go. And then you can go ahead and on the inside of the trees, you can just do some little kind of squiggly lines for the bark. Birch trees have those bands of, where when you're looking back at them, there's kind of like bands of color. I'm going to see what this other marker looks like for this, because that pen doesn't like to glide across this paper very well. And that's just something you might have to sort of play around with a little bit. Use what you like or what works best. Try it out. You might have to try some different things. I typically like using these Sharpie pens for my outlines, but like I said, it doesn't like this textured paper that I'm using. So I'm just kind of varying back and forth and making these a little wider at the edge of the tree and then more narrow as it goes in. And I'm trying to keep them uneven. I don't want it to be like, I guess you would say like a pattern going across. I don't want it to be completely even. if that makes sense. So it's very random how I'm putting these little textures of the bark in. The only thing I'm really doing that's deliberate is I'm making sure I'm going back and forth. And you can do a couple in a row. Again, just play around with it a little bit and see what looks good, what you think looks right. And I typically, when I make mine, I don't like to go all the way across. I'll stop and leave a little bit of a gap at the edge, but again, that's just something that's a personal preference. That's how I do it. When you're doing your artwork, you should always do whatever you think looks and feels right. You don't have to do yours exactly how somebody else does it. So that's it for the trees. Move this out of the way so you can see it a little bit better. And then for this one, now when you do, if you want to do something like this where you have the ground underneath, you can add some little shadows real light at the bottom of your trees. And then, of course, you want to go ahead and erase that so you don't have a line going across the bottom of your paper. And then you want to do the same thing with your marker. And just outline where the edge of your tree would be. Making some little wavy lines if you want. And that tree's gonna go all the way down. And again, you can draw some going all the way down. You can draw some stopping short. But what I want to show you on this one is when you come down here at the bottom where this edge is, just draw your tree coming down and then just stop where the bottom of the tree would be. So you don't want to outline that bottom edge. It would probably look kind of funny if you had a dark line going across there. And of course you could do your outlines for your trees in a color other than black. Typically when you see birch trees, they're kind of black and white, maybe some grays in them, but typically they're more, they just, when you see them, you picture them as being more just black and white. But of course it's art, so absolutely do whatever you feel like doing, whatever looks right to you, whatever feels right. And this board is very warped, so it's probably not the best one to try doing this on. So I would suggest if you're doing your textures on your trees that don't use a board that's warped and rocking back and forth as you're trying to put your lines in here. But so I'm just going to do this real quick. I would probably take a little bit more time than what I'm doing here, because this isn't anything that's overly difficult. I think you can grasp the concept fairly easily. We're just doing some squiggly lines. You can leave some spaces between these if you want to. That's up to you. That's another thing you can just kind of play around with and see what it looks like. Let's get that board out of the way. So here's our black and white one. There's the one with the color on it. And that's it. These guys are finished. So as you can see, really, really easy beginner type painting if you want to play around with some colors, experiment with different colors, and like sunset, sunrise type colorings. Try some different things. That's all there is to it. It's super easy and great for beginners and perfect for artist trading cards. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Well, how'd you do? Did you make some of your own artwork? I hope you did. I hope you felt encouraged and motivated to start some of your own work. And I hope you feel inspired to keep working on your art. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos from us when they get posted. I'll talk to you soon. Happy creating!